You are watching the broadcast of the El Paso County Commissioners Court meetings. Commissioners Court meetings are held every Monday at 9:30 a.m. on the third floor of the El Paso County Courthouse, located at 500 East San Antonio in downtown El Paso. These meetings are open to the public. The meeting will start momentarily.
We're up.
Good morning. Today is Monday, April 6, 2020. Commissioners Court is meeting in regular open session. Would you please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation by Pantheroni.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
one nation,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And may God bless America.
Good morning, commissioners, leaders, and staff.
Miguel, I think Commissioner Stout, his frame is frozen. I'm not. I don't know if he can hear us now.
Commissioner Stout, are you there? Okay, he's left the meeting. Stand by. I'm going to call him one more time. It showed him as unavailable. Now it's calling him.
Sorry, Otto. I got cut off there.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Okay. Are you back now? Yeah, you can. I can hear you.
Okay.
I think everybody's on now, Miguel.
Okay. I think that we were ready for the invocation. She was about to start.
Thank you.
Yes. Good morning, Judge, commissioners, leaders, and staff. Almighty God, this is the day the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. How grateful we are, our loving Father, that in your great mercy, your hand covers us here in El Paso County. This morning, Lord, we humble ourselves and acknowledge our need of you. We don't rely on man's wisdom. Let wisdom that is from above direct the thoughts, deliberations, and decisions of this Commissioner's Court. May our county and city leaders work together to seamlessly effect policy that will protect the people of El Paso County. I speak your peace and your comfort and your life over all those who are suffering from COVID-19, and I call for our faith to rise up as we refuse to give in to a spirit of fear. We pray especially for the faithful first responders, caregivers, and medical personnel that go to work every day and risk their health to see that we are taken care of. We ask you to bless them, keep them from sickness and disease, and give them the strength they need to stay in the fight. We are a resilient people. We walk by faith and not by sight. We trust you to provide everything we need for life and godliness. We are El Paso strong, strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. In the matchless name of Jesus, the one who came in the flesh, I speak these things. Amen, and so be it.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mrs. Ferroni. I really appreciate that. And welcome to, on behalf of the commissioners and myself, welcome to Commissioner's Court. Just a few comments. We worked very diligently on the order, trying to address the little bit of misalignment that the governor had with our particular order and that of the city. I think we have that taken care of thanks to Joanne Bernal and her team of keeping really close to me and to the process. It looks like this order is at the point that it should be. We are ahead of the curve in some areas. The governor's order opened up a little bit more on the religious sector, and but the religious community here, led pretty much by Bishop Seitz and his relationship with the other faith communities, decided not to open it up to where the governor had it, which really helped us tremendously, and to continue following our order on not having celebrations. And they do celebrate mass, like they would at any other time, but without open to the public. The construction, we worked pretty hard on that one. It stays the same, so we'll allow Public Works and the county to be able to continue their work. There are some concerns as to how rigid that was going to become. Still having issues more on the construction side due to people still not understanding, gathering lunch hours, that kind of thing. So we're working very close with that. Recreation, parks and recreation, that really became an issue, and now we're saying, use your sidewalks, your neighborhood, but stay away from the parks. They are closed. We can suggest vigorously on the trails. We've had some issues on rescues at the at Mount Franklin trails, Run Coleman trails. We're only encouraging not to use them, but they're still open to the public, and that we do everything possible to have that social distance when that happens. The rest of the grocery stores doing a much better job in been visiting some and looking at some of the things that happened to see how the order and how the impact that the order has had in our community. A lot different now. There are more markers and more ways to know where you should be standing and so forth. Some of the larger, super Walmarts are holding people back, decreasing the parking. So as you can see, the community's responded very well. We had a discussion with everybody from the Sheriff's Department, Greg Allen, Sheriff's Department, as many people as possible from both police department and the sheriffs to see the enforcement component. Right now, we continue to feel that the premise is education. Also, the concept of warning is the greatest thing that we're doing now. We had over 500 warnings, but only 2 citations, and only because they did not adhere to those citations. So continue to work with people, letting them know what they should and shouldn't do. As long as they abide by it, we continue to see law enforcement as something that we don't want to be, on the violation side until we see that the community does not respond accordingly. So far that's been the focus. That order, like I said, seems to cover most of the areas, the head of the curve as to what other cities are doing, and feel very good about the response from the community towards that order. So I thank the community and those that are listening. Our county employees have been exceptional in staying at home, working safe, and following some of the things that have to happen. I think the biggest challenge right now that we have is the hospitals and what's going to happen with respect to the ICU and to respect to being able not to have an overflow. Had a meeting yesterday with Nicole Ferroni, the city Opportunity Center for the Homeless, yesterday to discuss the opening of the Delta shelter. That seems to be, or center, and the Costa Center, that seems to be going very well. Chief Rodriguez focused also on the hotels, that one of the primary things that we could do is to be able to separate people in different rooms versus having people that are symptomatic in one area. So if we have the hotels there, we have several available to be able to isolate and keep people separate from each other if they have symptoms. Then we have the Delta opening, and so there's a lot of focus on that. So the hospitals and of course the homeless population are going to be critical issues going forward, and I'm hoping that we're beginning to address them ahead of the curve, as I've been saying. So once again, that's a very brief. I know we're going to get some a much more detailed information from Chris and his report, and from Betsy as to what's taking place. Once again, everything we do, thanks to the commissioners and their support and their participation and understanding. I think we have a great team, and I think we have great stakeholders that are really participating throughout the city. I think a lot of communities are envious of the kind of relationships we have with all the agencies here in El Paso. And of course, we're coming through a very difficult time on August 3rd that helped us tremendously to come together as a community. And we're seeing that has been one of the most important factors so far, is this unity with everybody in the community. So thank you for that. And Jessica, we'll continue.
Thank you, Judge. Item number 4 is the consent agenda, composed of items 4A through 4O. For item 4E, we do have a correction to read in. Item 4E, approve amendment number 25 to the County of El Paso's 2019 through 2020 operating budget. This budgetary amendment will not increase or decrease the County of El Paso's 2019 through 2020 overall operating budget of $475,556,933.10. Further, approve and authorize a transfer of $500,000 from General Fund G Admin Operations Contingencies to General Fund G Admin COVID-19 Operations Expenses General account to address immediate needs within the county. Are there any items that members of the court would like to pull for individual discussion?
Commissioners?
I believe there was item N pertaining to the single manufactured homes for Colonia self-help programs.
Okay, any other items?
We're pulling that. I'm sorry, Jessica, I wasn't able to hear that. Are we pulling that item out?
Yes, item
Yes.
4N for Commissioner Perez.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Can we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Commissioner Leon,
Aye.
Commissioner Stout,
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson,
Aye.
Judge Samaniego.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 5 is public comment. At this time, we do not have anybody signed up for public comment, so we will take no action for item number 5. Item number 6, County Administration. Discuss and take appropriate action regarding El Paso County's preparation and response for COVID-19.
Betsy?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. Today, let's see, do we have the presentation up?
Yes, we do. It is up and sending to everybody.
Okay. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, next slide. So today, for the April and probably also for the May and June special meetings, I'd like to ask that we consider moving these items that would normally be on the special meeting to regular Monday meetings to minimize the times our AV time has to be present in the courthouse, if that would be okay with members of the court.
Good idea, Betsy.
It's fine with me.
So fine with me.
Thank you. Next on our list here, we have projects that are in progress or planned. So right now we're working with Public Works and other departments that have major projects that are either in progress or planned to be occurring over these next couple months. Norma will be reaching out and working with legal on any ramifications if we are to delay or postpone any of these items. And as we get that information, I imagine next week we'll bring some forward. Today, what we have that we want to double check with the court is our paving season. We've awarded the overlay, and then today we have materials to award. And we need those awards to proceed because those are the same materials that we use all year long. They're on an as-needed basis that we draw them down from the vendor, but we need those for the entire year's worth of work for patches and potholes and things of that nature. However, what we would like for the court to consider is either delaying or suspending the paving season this year. If you delay it, we would be asking for anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks to delay it. We could still complete the paving season this year with a delay if at that time the court decides to go ahead and proceed. But considering the current circumstances, we wanted to see if you all wanted to consider delaying or suspending the paving season this particular year.
Betsy, how tell us the challenges given our situation today and how it impacts the paving. Is it mostly the gathering, or what is it that challenges us not to continue, or why do we delay versus going ahead at this time?
So we can continue working, but some of the challenges we've had, for example, individuals go out to the work site together. They do generally, or they are generally, our crews are prepping the roads for the paving season, but they do work together at some points in time during the day. Then they all ride out to job sites together, and then they get on their equipment and they each individually operate their own equipment. Norma and Fernie have put things into place to try to the greatest extent possible to assure that our employees are using the same piece of equipment over and over versus rotating between pieces of equipment to try to minimize the impacts or the exposure. But there are still challenges to this. You still have crews going out together and having some exposure. If we delay, we would ask our crews to be working for, either remotely, or we would put them on admin leave during the delayed period.
Betsy, I'm just concerned that this is something that will continue. The challenges of the construction companies are also having that same difficulties. But I think if we follow what we need to do and some of the suggestions, especially OSHA has been very helpful in saying how to conduct this the business. So I mean, personally, I would like to see. No, I don't like to, if not necessary, to delay something, especially infrastructure, and that it all piles up at the end of the year. And so my suggestion would be: is there a way not to delay, but not to be, part of the problem, but be part of the solution in these areas? I know construction is still going to continue. It might be restricted later on. It isn't at this particular time. So if we delay now and then we have a restriction later, I don't know how that's going to impact by the end of the year. So just for consideration, that if you feel comfortable, or at least that you could put a plan together that allows to feel that we can continue the construction, abide by the rules, and continue working on some of the infrastructure for our community.
Judge, if I may.
Sure.
The only thing I would add, I mean, similar, just like we discussed last week with some road projects that we have, like the temporary relief route going to Vista del Sol. I mean, I think just as long, because roads are critical infrastructure during this time, in case there does need to be first responders, whether it be an ambulance, whether it be sheriff's officers, whether it be state police, whether it be whatever the case. I don't know if there's certain roads or that could take priority that are identified that, we do have a lot of rural areas that I haven't seen the schedule for what roads are being paved, but there are some roads that, that I'm sure need it more than others. But as it pertains to first responders, I think that's what's most critical, and that's why, critical road infrastructure was exempted. But if we are really going to adhere to the critical road infrastructure, I'm not just talking about, folks may have to live with potholes for a couple months. But if there's a road that's in such a condition that, would inhibit the travel of first responders or make it more dangerous for them to access certain areas, particularly in rural areas, I think that's just something we need to look at.
I think that's great insight. The sort of prioritize, not. I think most of the concept or the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish is not close things down, but minimize as much as we can. And I think Commissioner Perez is on the right track of saying, let's make sure that we pick those projects that are critical into our infrastructure, especially now, and any kind of roads that are going to be very important to us and to first responders. So I like that focus. Betsy, given my comments and Commissioner Perez, what are your thoughts?
We'll be glad to bring back what those roads would be, and also share the schedule with the court, and we'll work on continuing as safely as possible.
Okay.
And Judge, I mean, I understand that it's going to make things a little bit more complex for the contractor's purposes, but those are just kind of the things that the contractor has to understand, and we're trying to strike that balance, right, between being prudent and limiting as much outdoor activity as possible, but also having that continuity of operations. But I guess if you could just see what is possible or what the contractor is amenable to, or how much it might complicate it, that would be helpful.
Yeah, my
do know
discussion
that the
with
contractors,
contractors is that they
willing
have been
to proceed.
extremely, they understand the situation quite well, that either they're not working or we do give them some flexibility to continue working. And Betsy, just as one additional thing that we could do is that when we do interact with contractors, that they do abide by the standards. That's one of the most critical areas right now is construction, as far as not adhering to a lot of things, a lot of gatherings during the lunch hours and things of this nature. So whatever relationship that we have, that we do, let them know that we're going to work with them under these conditions, and that they're responsible, and if not, we would hesitate to work with them. Commissioner Leon?
Yes, my question is for Betsy. Between now and the time you bring back the priority list, are we going to experience a setback, or are we continuing to pave as we speak? What is the current status?
So right now we're preparing the roads for the paving season. As you know, we awarded the contract last week for the overlay, but right now our crews are getting the roads ready for both the overlay and then the work that we do for the single and the double chip seal projects. So our crews are out there now preparing shoulders, preparing the base of the road for those projects. And so there is no delay at this time. Now, where we could experience delays is if we have employee shortages or something of that nature. But at this point in time, our employees are working and preparing the roads.
Okay, Judge and Commissioners, I just wanted to assure that between now and by the time we get the list, that our job sites aren't idle, and it seems like we're moving along, and I'm okay with that.
Thank you, Commissioner Leon.
Judge, Commissioner Robinson. Judge,
can I add something?
Good
morning, Judge.
Commissioner Robinson.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. I agree with the concept that expressed by Commissioner Leon and Commissioner Perez. But the only thing I will add to it is make sure we don't forget the safety aspect of it.
Absolutely.
Judge,
and
this
just,
Commissioner Stout.
Commissioner Stout, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate Betsy and the Public Works team for looking into this for us. I think that kind of dovetailing on what Commissioner Robinson is saying is that we need to make sure that we're not putting our employees in danger or anybody else's employees in danger by asking them to if they're not able to in the course of their day because of the way things work and the way things are, practices social distancing as if they're like if they're riding in a van together to the work site or something like that. I think the top priority needs to be the health and welfare of our employees and even those employees who work for the contractors. And I understand that these are difficult decisions to make, and it's not like we want to be in this position, but in the end, the reason why you, Judge, put the order in place is quite evident, right? It's because we need people to distance themselves. We need people to take care of themselves so that things don't get worse. And so I think that we really need to keep that in our mind at every juncture when we're talking about what we're doing here. And secondly, I definitely understand Commissioner Pettis's point about making sure that there's that we're not inhibiting first responders from getting from point A to point B. But it seems to me that right now, if people are actually obeying the order, people shouldn't be out on the streets. People shouldn't be out driving around unless they, have an essential. They work for an essential business or something of the sort. And so, I think that could be more of an issue of looking at whether or not people are actually obeying the order. But there are, I think, some projects that we could probably not look at either delaying or may not even be necessary at all at this point in time because of and I brought up that relief route out on Pelicano because I feel that one of the main reasons that everybody wanted that relief route to be built and wanted to spend $500,000 on building that relief route is because of the traffic issue and I'd love to see. I don't know if Commissioner Pettis, if you know if the traffic has actually subsided in that area. I'm not advocating for stopping the construction on Pelicano itself because that's a major thoroughfare that we definitely need to. I think work on getting finished if we can, as long as we're being safe and keeping folks' health and welfare in mind. But I think there are certain projects like that relief route that not only may not be necessary anymore, but could save us a chunk of cash that we could utilize since we're here talking about folks having to reduce their budgets by 5%. Every department. Maybe there's some savings to be had there that we could utilize and redirect that money to dealing with this crisis more robustly.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, and you're absolutely right. We follow the medical advice, and then we minimize the impact of the decisions that we have to make. So safety is obviously the most important thing for employees and for everybody else. One of the side notes is that if we could do it safely and we could do it without any worries about spreading the virus, our community really needs to see some sense of hope. Some of the other communities that have lost a lot of the hope, they've created some issues from depression to all kinds of things. So if we could do it safely and if they could see that things continue to happen out in our community, especially in infrastructure, it gives our community a sense of being able to move forward, as long as we do not in any way sacrifice our medical advice with what we have to do out in there. So yes, you're absolutely right. The safety containment is above all things. And I get 10,000 texts a day and emails on why we do what we do, not understanding why we close businesses or why things happen like this. And the answer is always the same: containment. And if containment is seen as the most important, and then we'll deal with all the collateral impact of that order going forward. So thank you for the additional thoughts on safety for our employees and for our community. I think I heard Norma Palacios. Were you going to come in and say something? I thought I'd heard you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good
Okay,
morning, Judge,
thank you,
Commissioners.
Norma.
I wanted to mention that we've worked real hard to make sure to ensure that all our roads in our road systems are safe and can be traveled on. That's why we are recommending that the awarding that's going to take place today on materials is awarded so that we can continue to have that available to us. We can patch potholes or address any issues. But at this point, our crews and I feel very comfortable that we don't have any issues in our roads, and we will continue to work hard so that any pothole is taken care of immediately. Because even though it's a pothole, it makes a difference in the safety of whoever's traveling through those roads. So that's something I wanted to share with the court, and also that we will provide you a list of the roads that will be paved. And if you will recall, we brought up that item to the court on how we determine what roads would be paved in the following year based on the need. And if I can answer any questions, I also have Fernie on the line if you have any other information that you need from us.
Thank you, Norma.
Judge.
Thank you. Commissioner Leon? Commissioner Leon?
I apologize, Norma, before you get off, one of the things that I wanted to emphasize is that Commissioner Stott brought up is that bypass between Pelicano and the other road. It's not only the residents that are using that, there's also a lot of commercial traffic. There's a lot of businesses out there that are going to be depending on it, and depending on when the schools start back up, it's still going to be needed. And I think it's a bypass that we approved, and I think we need to stick with that. I appreciate what you're saying, but I think at this point, my feeling is that we need to go through with that.
Yes, that's a different project. Yes, aside from our roads, I was talking about our roads, our existing roads. But you are correct, Commissioner. That will be used by the businesses and the public and within the area. And as we continue to experience the road, that will be beneficial to the community as a whole.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you,
Judge,
Norma. Thank you,
Commissioners.
Commissioner.
I did want to also share with you, I mean, we are providing mask and hand sanitizer to our employees who are working in the field. We are also going to work with Hopeton to see what additional vehicles are available that we could use during this period so that each individual could have a vehicle to drive out to the job site. And if we're ready, the next item that I'm wanting to go over is the swimming pool operations. We're asking that the court consider suspending swimming pool operations for the public for this summer. The city has shut down their swimming pools and water parks for the summer. We believe that at this time it would be prudent for us to do so as well. Otherwise, we have to start gearing up for hiring and preparing for the summer season.
Betsy, I think that's an excellent, if you look at some of the things that we're dealing with and the estimation, or, you know, what we feel will be the nearest, or the, the month that we feel things are going to get better, we would lose probably 3/4 of the, under the best scenario, about 3/4 of the season, I believe, to begin with. And like you said, having to bring people in at this point and trying to prepare for something that you're not even have a good understanding of, I think it's the right decision. And I think the community will understand that that there's going to be that sacrifice. We're going to put this behind us, but preparing for in such a way for the unknown, to me, is not the right approach. So I think you're on the right track, Betsy.
Betsy, this is Christina. Are you looking for an action by the court then to formally take to shut down the pools for the summer as a result of COVID-19?
I don't know that it needs a formal action. I mean, if you legally think we need them to take formal action, we just wanted to have the conversation with them.
Yes, I think if that's the plan, I think we should do so. And we're citing as the reason the COVID-19, so it would fit under this agenda item. So your motion would be for the commissioners, if you choose, to approve suspending swimming pool suspend county swimming pool operations for summer 2020 season, for the summer 2020 season. That would be the motion as a result of COVID-19.
Betsy, just a question. Are there more things that might come up during our meeting today that we could sort of take an action on those things that we're either going to delay or we're going to, not continue with? Are there any more so that we don't have to do, 7 or 8 different votes, or we could put things in one area and say these are the things that we're delaying or postponing or whatever? Are there more coming up as we continue this meeting?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
This is the item we're asking for action on today. We're continuing to evaluate operations, but this is the one that we're asking for action on today. The other items we have for you today include, we have just an update to the court on where we're at on certain staff that are still working. We have an update on the homelessness crisis response work, and we have an update from the executive crisis planning team.
Okay. Well, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Perez?
Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Judge Samaniego?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Judge, commissioners, just also want to make you aware, as well as thank these staff that are continuing to work and continuing to ensure operations, and they're actually on site, and that's infrastructure. This is our road and bridge crews. It's also our water operations, doing daily checks on our water system. Parks maintenance, they continue to work at Ascarity Sports Park, maintaining the grounds in our outlying parks as well. We have facilities maintenance continuing to work, fleet maintenance, ITD at the sheriff's office, MDR, the pod, our AV team who makes our meetings possible. We also have CJC staff continuing to work, fleet maintenance, I've mentioned, the medical examiners team, and I'm sure there's others that our court systems are continuing to operate, the sheriff's office and our constables continue to operate, and just want to acknowledge the work that they're doing. Again, we're doing as much as we can to try to ensure their safety. Deborah's going to talk a little bit about later on in the presentation about if you have personal protective equipment needs, to be sure to be entering those requisitions so that we can supply our employees and do everything we can to keep them as safe as possible during this time. But really just cannot thank them enough for the work they're doing to make sure the county continues to operate and serve the public. Now I'd like to turn it over to Joel, who is going to give an update to the court on the homelessness crisis response work that's going on.
Judge, can I chime in for just a minute before Joel goes on?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Commissioner Robinson.
On the health and safety, one observation that I made over this past weekend, and it applies throughout the city in the county as well, as far as the emptying of the dumpsters of trash. I noticed that in some locations where the receptacles for the large dumpsters were overflowing, and trash, garbage is spilled on the ground So that I feel that could impact on our health and safety overall. So what I'm saying is that if someone during your discussion with the mayor, talking to the private providers, they empty the trash at businesses and at residences as well, that they empty them as soon as possible.
Thank you,
We'll
Commissioner.
definitely share that with the city, sir.
Definitely will pass that word. Go ahead, Betsy.
We'll share that with the city, and we'll also make sure that our county contractor is continuing to maintain operations.
Right. Well, yeah, and I bring that up because of the fact that it could help. It could be a cause to help spread the virus we got.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that insight. Betsy, you'll take care of that. You're in close contact
Yes,
with the city as well as I am, so thank you.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Joel Bishop with County Administration. Are you ready for me, Judge?
Yes, I am. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. An update on the homeless shelter situation. There's been a lot of work done on this in the last week in collaboration with the city and other shelter providers. The county began a work group with these various homeless shelters and those stakeholders that could help and assist them. We've had 2 or 3 different meetings in the past week to determine a potential alternate site. Just for the public's sake, there's concern about social distancing and overcrowding given the current COVID order from the county judge. And so we've been looking at potential solutions to provide a overflow site or an additional homeless shelter site. And a number of different options have been looked at, but it seems to be the Costa Center near the Coliseum, the community center that the city runs, is an ideal site for that. There are several of us went out there on site and toured it last Thursday morning, and since then the city has developed a draft operational plan to help create an intake point for the shelters and to move particularly the opportunity center's operations into there. And so that's what's in progress right now. We're hoping that the city can work out its legal the legal agreements and the paperwork that needs to be done within the next day or two to get it over there. This is a great collaboration on the homeless shelters. The rescue mission and the Salvation Army have both offered to collaborate on providing meals to this site. The county we work with Jose Landeros. I talked with him this morning and Hope and Staple yesterday regarding to assist with transportation for the Opportunity Center. So there's been a lot of coordination. I think the county can be of great service and help in the process as the city kind of does the heavy lifting with the site and the legal work. We run the coordinated entry program for the homeless, and I think that can be redirected to this site in a video conferencing style method, which so it wouldn't require our staff to necessarily be on site, maybe at the beginning, but probably not for very long, if any. The city has also worked out providing some potential equipment for that, so we can maintain our operation there and maybe even enhance our coordinated entry. So I believe we have identified good solutions, and I really appreciate Commissioner Stout. I know this is in your district, the primary problem, and all the hard work you did last week working with us, and Judge Samaniego, thank you for jumping in yesterday and helping press this forward, and the support that Betsy has given and the staff have just been so willing to jump in and help and assist in finding solutions. And Nicole Farini from the city has been great to work with as well. So it's been a real collaborative effort, and I know there's some plenty of other considerations, and we're just getting started. But I think we have that solution kind of on the horizon. With that, is there any questions or any other
just
comments?
real quick, yeah, me too. I want to thank Commissioner Stout because he's been really active on this front. So thank you for that. And Norma, we sort of, I guess implicitly, there's going to be a lot of repurposing of the center. And so we encourage that if there was things that the county could do, since like Joel said, that the heavy lifting is being done by the city at this time. But I think there's certain things that we could do from the partitions to the repurposing of, so they might be calling on you, Norma, to Joel will be calling on you to see if, what are some of the resources that we might have from, personnel to things that we have within the county that could help repurpose and really ignite this initiative. The discussion yesterday is that we don't have a lot of time, push hard on the city not to take too much time on the legality of it. And as Ray Tulia said, we've always carried the liability. Now there's a lot of concern about the liabilities between the Opportunity Center and the city. So I know Nicole will push this really hard and move it forward. But there might be some things that the county could do as a secondary support for these centers. So we did say if this happens, that Joel would contact you, Norma, to see what are some of the things, and of course with Betsy's guidance and with her ability to maybe make some expenses and make sure that these centers are done quicker than later.
Absolutely, Judge. Whatever we can do, I'll work with Joel and see how we can help. We're available to help.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Betsy, as well, to keep that in mind.
Yes, sir.
Judge,
okay, Joel, go ahead.
Jose Landeros.
I think, Jose, one of the things that came up was the transportation component, and I don't know if they've reached out to you to see Sun Metro's a little overburdened at this time, according to them, as to being able to do some things. We did discuss that, what happened at the refugees and our support with respect to transportation. So I don't know, Jose, do you have any comments about the kind of support that we could provide at this time from a transportation perspective?
Thank you, Judge. Jose Landeros with the Planning and Development Department. So we've been in close communication with TxDOT's Public Transportation Division this morning, and we did receive concurrence for them to allow us to not only proceed with using the privately owned First Transit bus, which we had previously done with the refugee crisis, but actually authorize us to use the buses that are purchased using TxDOT funding that we run on our routes on a daily basis. And so in our communications this morning with First Transit, who is our vendor for the commuter bus service, they did authorize us to use an additional 3 buses. So we'll have 4 buses available as early as tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to begin the service. If the city is able to move forward with the legal approval and use of the facility that Mr. Bishop described, we should be able to move about the 70 or 80 people that the Opportunity Center does have and want to transport to the Acosta Center roughly in about 4 hours. So it really just depends on how many people there are and the amount of belongings that they have to transport. But we should be running about 9 individuals per bus. That's the half capacity to ensure that there's social distancing within the bus. But that will allow us to move everyone as efficiently and effectively as possible. So First Transit is on notice. At this point, all we are awaiting is a green light from the city that the facility will be available and will be open, and then we can begin moving these individuals again, as I mentioned, as early as 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Great job, Jose. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and sort of had a lot of confidence that that you knew how to make this happen. So thank you, Jose.
Thank you, Judge.
Are there any other questions regarding the homeless shelter situation?
Joel, thank you also for your work and coordination. It's been critical, and thank you for the amount of work and time that you've spent in coordination and working with so many different agencies to be able to achieve this. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you all for
Judge,
your support as well. I know
Joel
Commissioner Stout.
Joel,
Commissioner Robinson.
Oh, okay.
Joel, could you just like have Joel, if he give you a call offline?
Oh, Joel, did you hear that?
Yes, I did. Will do.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it for that to happen. Thank you, Joel.
You bet. Judge, if I may, just one other quick update for the court on this is the Opportunity Center reported that we're beginning to get intakes from like Las Cruces Rescue Mission, who is not able to take more homeless due to the COVID situation, and that's causing a reroute into El Paso. And it was another highlight of why this is so important, that we may start seeing actually an increase, not necessarily because of an increase in homelessness here in El Paso, but because we're getting some cases rerouted in. And to try to get out in front of this is really important. So this has been a really important project, and I really appreciate the county staff, and Jose jumped in so quick to help with the transportation, and all of the support that we've had has been tremendous. So thank you all as well.
And that's a great point. One of my tasks was that, in fact, to talk to some of the, when one agency makes a decision, sometimes there's an impact or a domino effect on the other side. If we have less people going into jail, then there's a possibility there's going to be more people headed in the direction of the Opportunity Center. So one of my task was to, and I tried this morning, I'll make sure I get in touch with the mayor of Las Cruces to allow him also to understand what's happening as they, push back a little bit, then they're coming to El Paso. Great relationship with that mayor as well. So I think that I could have that discussion. Maybe it's something that they are not aware that when they make certain decisions that it impacts what we're trying to accomplish here. And then that could be we'd rather help them and provide what we're doing and use some of our modeling with them than for them to think that they have no other recourse but to send them to El Paso. So I'll work on that as soon as we complete the Commissioner's Court.
Okay. Thank you all.
Judge, Commissioners, next I'd like to turn it over to Chris Stathis, who's leading our Executive Crisis Planning team, for those updates.
Thank you, Chris. Go ahead.
Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Chris Stathis, your Chief Information Officer. Thank you for allowing me to present to you today. The first slide that I'd like to show you, if Miguel could bring it up, really just shows kind of the participation of your departments that have joined in. We've had very good, this is actually a little older slide. We have a much newer one, I apologize for that, that shows that we have had great response from our teams and very good feedback in terms of keeping up with the numbers of staff that are on, that are both working remotely and that are local. We also show that the hours of operation have really maintained themselves, and we're keeping up operations very consistently with your order and with the needs of the community. If you go to the next slide, please. So from there, I have just a few short updates from each of the responding subcommittees. I'm not the subject matter experts for these, but I'll do my best to relay what their message was for the court. If you require more information or if you have questions, we'd be happy to pull those together and get those back to the court. From the Public Health and Safety Subcommittee, the Sheriff's Office is reporting that the inmate population and their bookings are both on the decline. So they're seeing less bookings, and the population itself is on the decline. They are screening all people entering all of their facilities. So the courthouse, the academy, the headquarters, and both jails are all being fully screened. All jail employees are receiving masks to protect them in the course of their duties. New inmates are given a 14-day isolation, as well as being provided masks during that isolation to protect the population. The last update from the SO was that they are supporting the remote hearings process. This is both the 48-hour bond hearings, which started on Saturday, and also other plea hearings and other court proceedings that are occurring at both jails. And I think they're expanding that as the courts allow. The second update from this subcommittee was the constables. The constables are all seeking to get additional PPE equipment. I think they're working with the purchasing agent to ensure they get everything they need. Next slide, please. From the courts and justice side of the subcommittee, the Council of Judges has reported that most of their proceedings are occurring via video conference. It's limited to essential only proceedings, so they're not doing their full gamut, but they're doing those things that are essential. They are trying to expand these proceedings as their capabilities grow. I think they're both learning how to utilize the tools. We're working with them, and they're finding new and creative ways to be able to implement the technology. They're utilizing a state-funded software to be able to accomplish this, and they have a plan to live stream these via YouTube so that the public would be able to view these in a live environment. The Public Defender's Office update has shown that they are predominantly working remotely. They do have some staff members having to come in, and they're working with IT and the Sheriff's Office to enable them to remotely service their clients. They're also moving towards electronic client files. They're converting these files to electronic documents. The estimate is this will be completed mid-April. The hope is, or the vision is, this will increase the collaboration between each other, and it'll reduce the in-office staff trips that need to occur. And they too are supporting the 48-hour bond hearing. Next slide, please. From the public service, I have two updates, one from economic development. The liftfund.com initiative had 400 loan applications in 3 days, and the grant applications were over 100 in 24 hours. They have reopened the grants portion of that website, and this will remain open until it meets capacity. From planning and development, they are reporting that they've closed the Red Sands area. This has been closed and barricaded. I've included a few pictures of what that looks like, but I think they're reporting that so far this is successful. Next slide, please. Last subcommittee to report in is the internal services. The primary one is from purchasing. They have 3 areas. The supply chain, they're focused on disinfectants, laptops, etc., are now becoming available. We are being warned that there is a longer lead times than in normal times. So they're still having to wait for some of these, but a good sign is that we're able to order them. They prioritize the order of masks, goggles, and gowns, I think commonly referred to as PPEs. They're finding that this is higher cost, and they are longer lead times than they would want or expect. The purchasing department is leveraging their partnerships. The detention contract between UMC and the SO has been a very big benefit. I believe this also allows for UMC to purchase specifically medical gloves for us, for the county, based on that contract. Although other medical supplies are limited, only UMC is able to do that, and I believe that's because the scarcity of those supplies. The other portion of partnerships I didn't make on here, but Deborah wanted me to remind you, is that the partnership with the school districts, with the city and the county, I think they call it the alliance that was created last year, has been a very big benefit as they've been able to cooperate and work together to try and team up to get some of this critical equipment. And then the last thing that purchasing wanted me to convey, this is specifically to all the departments within the county, is to continue placing routine orders through our county system, the MUNIS system. Doing this helps identify the need, and it helps them coordinate and consolidate those into larger orders that then become more attractive, and we're able to fill those faster. So there is a need for us to continue that process. And then secondarily, she wants us to remain confident. They're working nonstop to try and fill these orders. They're looking for reasonable prices and reliable sources. Next slide, please. The last one is from me, from IT. I don't really have a lot. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth. What I really want to convey to the court and to the county is that IT remains committed to looking at our core services. We are looking at a lot of metrics, as you might imagine. Those metrics we are simplifying into what we've used and what our capacity is. To date, our capacity is fantastic. We are more than able to meet the demands of the remote users. We believe as this event continues, that will grow a little bit, but we are more than capable of being able to meet the needs of the remote workers throughout the county. That completes my update. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can for the court, and we'll continue to make these updates as we're able and at every meeting that you'll allow us.
Judge, I have a question.
Judge, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Okay, I think someone, Commissioner or someone was going to make a comment. I was just going to say, Chris, thank you for that coordination. And I think the role models that we have been at the county, thanks to everything everyone is doing is very much appreciated. And thank you for that. I was going to say that I'm leading I put together a team. We're trying to do a regional approach. It's called an online forum, and we're trying to do that not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday for the listeners. And that is that one of the things that we need to do is understand the impact that orders have and the decisions that we make. And so the idea is to have the mayor from El Paso, from Las Cruces, and from Juarez, myself, and then have another backup of people like Betsy, economic development, listening to any questions that we could resort to them. And the idea is that we keep a community, one, we get to understand what the impact is and what's going on, and two, we're able to provide very quick information. And so we'll keep you posted on. I started working with Dr. Hansen from NMSU. Looked at the fact that we needed to sort of bring the whole region together and approach COVID-19 from a regional perspective. As you heard this morning, Las Cruces might be working at one end, not understanding the impact it has at the other end. And so I think there's going to be a very valuable forum that will have 4 people all the time sort of leading the discussions, but about 12 people on the call that could answer some of the questions that people might have, from what's an essential business to what's the impact, or what are some of the funding opportunities that are out there for small business impact. So I'm hoping that we do get this off the ground quickly. We're hoping that maybe Wednesdays at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. And then we'll let everybody know a little bit more information as we pull this together. Ricardo Mora is helping me with the format and the design of this particular forum. So I think this is our connection to our community, as well as the information that needs to be out there on a very quick basis. So just wanted to let you know as an additional thing that we're doing as part of the county.
Judge.
Commissioner Perez.
Thank you, Judge. I just had one question. It's probably directed more towards legal. I was going over very briefly the statutes pertaining to emergency orders, and as it pertains to procurement. What one issue that's been a problem throughout the country, and I'm sure we're experiencing it as well, has been that states and other governmental entities are competing against each other when it comes to the procurement of these same products, with like PPE and other equipment to address the emergency. And I saw the provision there where I guess various entities, similar to Region 19, but I'm assuming there could be inter-county or inter-city with other cities in the region and other counties in the region where they can collaborate in this type of environment, so we're not bidding against each other. Has that been explored or discussed? I just want to be sure that all the tools that are available to local governments at this time, particularly in a time of emergency, are being thoroughly looked at and utilized for them. So we're not overpaying for these types of things.
Deborah,
Commissioner.
are you on the call by any chance?
This is Christina Sanchez, Assistant County Attorney. Commissioner Perez, thanks for bringing that question up. Absolutely. Legally, there is a way to do that. We do this all the time with our state DIR contracts. We do this with our regional contracts. We enter into interlocal agreements. I would believe, I don't know if Deborah or somebody from her staff is on the call, that could probably give you some more information and insight in terms of what they are looking at and maybe some of the challenges. I can tell you, for example, that, you know, just this weekend, we were looking to get out a contract for PPE. You know, one of the questions that had came up was what collaboration, if any, has been going on with UMC to ensure that whatever that they could have access to, somehow the county could also have that same access. And I think it was on one of the slides that Chris presented there by purchasing that indicated we were able to do that for the gloves, the medical gloves, but the other equipment, each entity in and of itself had to go at it with its own order. Now or with its own request for procurement. Now, I don't know if that is more from the vendor side or if that is more from some other directive, but there's definitely a means legally how we can do that, how to coordinate that. I would defer to purchasing.
Debbie, I'm sorry, Betsy, could you address that? Because I don't think we have anyone from purchasing.
I do have Deborah.
I do believe Deborah's on the line, but I wanted to also share with you, we are going through Office of Emergency Management and Border Rack to try to obtain supplies, but they have told us to not rely solely on those supplies, that there would not be enough supplies for everybody, and that they are prioritizing those supplies. So they've encouraged us to go out on our own. Deborah, if you want to answer the question about the intercity or the intergovernmental.
Yes.
Thank you, Deborah.
Good morning. Deborah Carrejo, County Purchasing Agent. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. What we've been doing and what we've found, let me clarify something about the UMC. They've been great. They're a hospital. They have different needs, and they actually have certain types of items that are so critical that they cannot order on behalf of us, or they would actually impact their own allowances. They were not impacted by ordering us gloves, and I believe we are now coordinating pickup, so that has been a very good success. I wanted to thank Ray Perez, who works in their supply department. He's been great. As far as regionally, the first thing the city and the county did from a purchasing perspective is we activated the part of the alliance that basically could connect one another with vendors. Because as I found vendors that could potentially supply things, even if there was a long lead time, I was letting the city know. And then they were putting that out to the school districts. We are basically competing with other agencies, but not so much. The vendors are really just filling those on a first come, first served basis. I'm not seeing with counties and cities a lot of price gouging. We are seeing higher prices because they are trying to buy in bulk and get things quicker from the sources that might be outside of the country. There is a significant price increase, don't get me wrong, but we're not seeing the horrible stories that could be occurring. We're seeing long lead times. And I've helped a couple of agencies, a couple of smaller counties, by even telling them how we're approaching it and sharing some of the court's directives so that they can kind of guide their courts and tell them how to approach the purchasing. So yes, Commissioner Perez, it is, we're working very well with other agencies. Unfortunately, there is just a supply drain all over. And we're starting to see that some of the vendors are accommodating for that. And we are getting lots of contacts from vendors, but please, I need to assure you that for every 20, 30 vendor emails we get, we can only verify 2 or 3 of them are reliable and that they are able to be paid by us. We want to make sure the payment process is correct. And we want to make sure that the county in this situation isn't being taken advantage of. And I don't know if I answered your question, but hopefully I gave enough information.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just want to be sure that the county judge is using all the tools at his disposal under the emergency orders. And I don't know if there is any value, when he speaks to the county judges of the largest counties in Texas, if there's been some system set up, when it comes to procurement, because again, everybody's ordering the same supplies. But really, I think, I don't want to use rationing as a word. I mean, we're going to have to work collaboratively with these large counties when it comes to the procurement of this type of equipment. And, are there tools that are currently available under the law in these emergency orders, or under this emergency situation that we're not utilizing that might provide us some added benefits? That might shorten those lead times, that might reduce the cost, but I mean, most importantly, get the supplies to where they need to be, and it may require a larger collaboration or a larger framework for collaboration where the larger counties are agreeing that certain supplies are going to be deployed to certain areas as the virus spreads and hotspots arise. But again, I just don't know if there's those additional procurement tools that if there is any benefit to us into looking into that.
No, thank you, Commissioner Perez. Thank you for that and some of the insight that you've offered. And you're absolutely right. I hate to say this, but everybody's sort of, the squeaky wheel gets the oil kind of thing is happening. And if we don't participate and become active, the opportunity to work together, we've done a great job. I'm in constant contact with the Metro 6 largest counties in almost every dimension except that, and that's because of what you're saying, is that everybody's trying to pull as much as they can to their favor, and that one has been a little bit more difficult. Everything else has been very collaborative. The other part of purchasing as a group and all that, it seems like they have so much more of a need now that they would leave us sort of outside that picture. So I'm going to take heed to what you're saying and then really push hard on some of the things that we can control. You and I talked about Texas Tech and where's their loyalty? I mean, I'm not assuming that their loyalty is to Lubbock, but I want to make sure that whatever they have and resources that are for El Paso are kept in El Paso. So that discussion was very important to me, and I'm going to get on it very quickly to see what are some of the things. You mentioned one of the mayors being able to control some of the equipment that is required, and so I want to look at that and how that came about. So that was a dimension and one of the things that Betsy and I have talked about, that public health is also the county. But I think we need a little bit more traction, that we're equally served as far as from advice to consultations and all the things that are at the pleasure of the city with respect to their public health department, that we get the same kind of support and cooperation. Thank God that Dr. O has been extremely, Orocaranza has been really, really helpful, but that's almost on his own kind of thing. So I think a big lesson learned here is what's going to be our involvement in public health going forward for the county, and that we're equally represented. And so I want to get on a lot of items that Commissioner Perez presented to me, and work a little closer with Texas Tech, Dr. Lang, and Jacob Cintron as well, as to what do we need to be. I guess maybe it is right. I was going to say demanding, but yeah, demanding. What's the lion's share that we can have that will help our community, and that it doesn't go elsewhere because we just haven't made an effort to make sure that it does come our way. So thank you for that, Commissioner Perez. It was a good insight.
Thanks, Judge. And so just if I know the county attorney's office has been doing a great job, and Deborah as well as the procurement department. But if we can just look into again these additional authorities that are granted, and see if there's anything that could be beneficial, and maybe that those discussions have already been had. Also, I mean, I'm unaware of. I spoke to the judge this morning. Regarding the use of ventilators, there has to be additional equipment in our community outside of a hospital setting where ventilators are available. I mean, Texas Tech Medical School, for example, is a good example where I'm sure there's ventilators in somewhere on campus, but right now it would make more sense that those be deployed to hospital settings. I don't know if the county judge has that authority, with the emergency declaration and through the orders. I know the governor does, but if there are ventilators at Texas Tech, we need to make sure that the need here in our community is met, or that we're working at least collaboratively with Texas Tech out in Lubbock to make sure there's some arrangement where resources are being shared as they're needed. But I just want to just be sure that legally, whatever the judge, additional authority the judge has under the orders, as I mentioned to him, there's a mayor in some part of Texas where I read that he put as part of his orders, any medical facility in the city has to report to the mayor what ventilators they have in their inventory. And so we have the procurement side of things, but then we also have the sort of resources at our disposal that just sort of need to be redeployed and allocated to where they need to go. But I, like I said, I'm sure there's a lot of conversations that have been had. I'm sure there's been a lot of looking at that. I just don't know. That information hasn't been made available to the commissioners, but just as long as somebody is looking into that, because our community is going to have a lot of questions as the number of cases this week ticks up, and that we're inevitably likely going to have our first death this week with 10 folks in ICU. I don't know if anybody has, if the county attorney's office.
I don't know if Joanne or Christina, I know Joanne has been very active on what are some of the, of my abilities as a county judge, and what. Joanne, are you on the call by any chance, and sort of talk a little bit about the things that you and I've been trying to address as far as my to what level and limitations do I have, and what options do I have as a county judge?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. This is Joanne Bednall, County Attorney. Thank you, Commissioner, for the suggestion about the medical equipment. This weekend, Christina at her unit, which is Ryan and Erica, spent the weekend looking at all of the county orders that have been issued around the state. And one of the things we're doing this afternoon is discussing with the county judge additional types of authorities that we've seen exercised statewide. If the court, I think the ventilator, the medical equipment is a good idea. I have not seen that in the other large counties, but this is definitely evolving, and is one of the reasons why we're seeing so many jurisdictions issue amended orders, is that the county judges and the mayors are amending their orders in response to the crisis. So we will definitely add the question about medical equipment, or in fact any other type of equipment, and additional procurement authority. And if any of the commissioners have any additional ideas or suggestions, we are very open to hearing about them, and we will add them to our list to research.
And Judge, thank you, County Attorney. Judge, if I may, I mean, and one other thing, when it, again, I don't know if the judge has this authority. I know the governor has broad authority when it comes to this, but we have, there are potentially a lot of companies here, and I know that there already are a lot of companies that are engaged in the production of protective equipment for healthcare workers. I mean, is there anything that the judge can do to sort of take inventory of, saying legally, to take inventory of what can be done, and then perhaps us, if we find that it's necessary or practical to use, let's say, for example, the Economic Improvement Fund to convert, help convert certain manufacturing activities to the production of protective equipment for healthcare workers. As long as it's just somebody can look into the legal authorities to, so the judge can use his authority to the max, And then perhaps there has to be other requests made to the governor. But we have factories here that perhaps can be converted into making gowns or other things that may just need additional capital assistance to help make that transition. But we need that now. And so anything that we can do, again, there's the procurement side of things, but anything that we can do to here locally to produce these types of things. I know like Ready One, for example, I think has already been engaged in the production of protective equipment. But if there's anything else that can be done to convert any other type of manufacturing activities, again, just using as much of our community's resources as possible to alleviate this, I think would be helpful.
Thank you, Commissioner.
From a legal perspective.
Thank you,
We will
Commissioner
add
Pedersen.
we will add suggestions to our research list, and I would encourage any of the other commissioners, or frankly anybody in the county that has similar kinds of suggestions or questions, so we can add it. We are moving along very quickly in response to the crisis, and so things are changing, and the kinds of equipment and support that the county and the city need are changing almost daily sometimes. So those questions are very helpful. We'll add them to our list. Hopefully discuss this with the county judge this afternoon. Thank you, Commissioner.
This is Commissioner Robinson, if I can chime in.
Yeah, Commissioner Robinson, go ahead.
Well, you talk about one, you talk about issuing orders, but the other was about communication and collaboration. Has anyone communicated with Fort Bliss, for example, as far as equipment, number one? We talk about for hospital for patients, but also from a standpoint when we had Operation Katrina and Rita, Fort Bliss was very instrumental in supplying cots. Talking about where the stand-up centers for people the homeless and other people to reside on a temporary basis. We were able to get the cots and the mats from Fort Bliss to accommodate all the people that we housed at the convention center during that operation, as well as the Coastal Center and the Delta Center. We also use the same thing. So communication, coordination, collaboration is key.
Thank you.
Judge, this is Commissioner Stott. I just wanted to mention you might reach out to the Medical Center of the Americas, because I think that this is something that they've been working on, especially with some of the factories on the other side of the border as well. So they may be an important resource to reach out to kind of understand what is actually being done in the area when it comes to what Commissioner Pettis is talking about.
Thank you very much. I have been in touch with Emma Schwartz, and but that's an area that I had not discussed, that dimension of manufacturing. But I think it's a really viable suggestion that we should look into, especially with we've got Johnson and Johnson, Ethicon, these kinds of healthcare facilities in manufacturing, and are they focusing on some of the immediate needs or long-term needs? So a great suggestion. Thank you.
Judge, Andrea's on the call, and I know she's been in communication with MCA on this issue, and they have provided a list of businesses that are already retrofitting or changing their operations. We can make sure we share that with the court as well.
Thank you, Betsy.
Judge, I had before we move on, I had one more. Just wanted to ask when it comes to when it comes to the jail, I feel like a lot of great things are being done. But can I request that either when we have these weekly updates, it says that the bookings have gone down, but can we actually see the numbers next time? I'd like to understand exactly what the decrease is, and both on local and federal prisoners, what the booking numbers are and how much they actually are going down. And also, I don't know if the public can be provided this information regarding what they're actually being booked on. What crimes are these folks being booked on? I'd like to have that information provided to us as well if we can during these updates, or even an email or something like that. That would be great, since I've advocated and will continue to advocate that we need to put a moratorium on any bookings at all. But I understand that some things are being done within the jail to try to mitigate the spread, and I appreciate that. I feel like we can still do a little bit more. Thank you.
Chris, would you, if you're still on the call, would you handle that situation as part of the reporting, not only on the Monday meetings, but that you connect with them to have a little bit more consistency on a daily basis as to some of the information that Commissioner Stout is requesting? Chris, are you still on the call?
Judge, Chris is here, but what I'd like to ask is Joel Bishop has the reports of who's in jail and what they're in jail for, and we can share those links with the court on a regular basis. But once you have the link, you can see it on anytime you want to go in. You can go on, and it's very current. So
yeah, and
we'll also
share
that information.
We have the link, but I'd like for it to be part of Commissioner's Court, part of what the public can see as well.
Yes, sir.
And then one more thing, Judge, that I'd also like to continue to talk about and advocate for is looking at setting up some type of process, or I don't know how what the best route or the best process would be, but it seems to me that I've talked about this before, that a large majority of the spread is within family clusters, from family member to family member, and I think that we need to continue to look at either setting up a locality, a place where folks can go and be isolated away from their families if they have mild to medium or mild to moderate symptoms, where possibly they could be monitored by nursing staff, and just to make sure that they are being taken care of, first of all, and that they are not spreading the virus to family members. I think this is something that we haven't really moved a lot on, and I think that we need to start really having serious conversations about this. I'm glad that we were able to get the homeless population issue dealt with. I feel like that was a very pressing issue, and I really appreciate the work that you've done, Judge, and to collaborate with the city, with Joel, with Nicole Farini. But this is moving on. I think we need to look at the general public and really think about offering or looking at more proactive solutions as opposed to reactive. It seems to me that everybody is, of course, preparing for the worst, which I think is fine. I think that we need to understand the gravity of this situation, but I think there are some other actions that are proactive that we could be taking, instead of saying, okay, let's make sure that we have as much space available and for overflow for hospitals when we finally hit that point where we're at the surge or we're at the peak, and if we have hospital overflow, we definitely need to be prepared for that. But we also, I think, need to look at ways that we can keep that hospital overflow from happening, and that has, in my opinion, to do with looking at how we can take folks that may have mild to moderate symptoms and isolate them away from their families, so that they're not passing the virus to their families. Because if you look at a lot of reports, you'll see that the vast majority of why the virus is, or the main reason for passage of this virus is family to family, family member to family member. And so I'd like to really push that idea and see if we can work with the city and the Office of Emergency Management to either set up, I don't know if it's something like in a coliseum or in a convention center, or a space that may be smaller. It just depends on how many folks we have. But I think that being preemptive in that fashion is going to save us so much more money on the back end, and really save lives as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Commissioner. Very well received. And Joel, maybe you might want to look at with OEM as far as the hotel situation, that not just for the overflow of our homelessness, but maybe because being able to have your own room, being able to contain you there, having your shower, having that opportunity to isolate seems to be very effective. So maybe look at it from a dimension, not only from the homelessness, but also look at it from this general population, as Commissioner Stout had mentioned and suggested. So.
Yeah, I mean,
Judge,
I understand that people want to be
discuss
in the comfort of their homes, and I understand that lots of folks are already they're isolating, but I think we need to provide an option, or even look at making sure that people that do have these symptoms that they are taken care of, but away from their families where they could get them sick.
Thank you. Betsy, you were going to comment?
Joel's not on the call. He was actually on a call with the city, but we will make sure that we discuss this with OEM. I'm also having a conversation with Jacob today about housing for the less severe or other types of cases, and we will report back to the court on that.
Thank you, Betsy. Really appreciate that.
Judge, I've got a question.
Sure, Commissioner Leon.
In following what we're talking about right now, have you been in conversations with the mayor in the possibility of prepping that civic center? Are we moving in the direction that if we do need it, that we don't have to take initial steps at the time when it may be a little late?
Yeah, we had discussed that because of, they already know how to do that because of Katrina, as Commissioner Robinson has mentioned as well. And I know they're looking into that. I'll make sure that I talk to the mayor about what's taking place with that. But I'll follow up on that this afternoon, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Betsy, anything else that we need to look at, and then we can move on to the next item?
There had been some questions about how our orders work, and I'd asked Christina just to give an update to the court. We've had orders in the past where the court had to renew them periodically, but in this particular order, she has some information about how you all have approved it.
Yes. Good afternoon, or good morning, Commissioners, County Judge. Yes, so I know that there had been questions regarding the order. So just very quickly, the county judge is authorized to issue the initial declaration of emergency. He did so. Within those 7 days, it has to come back to the Commissioner's Court to extend that declaration. So that did come before you. It seems like ages ago, but I think it was on March the 13th that came before you. You approved it. In that particular order, I did discuss with the court, and it was raised. I think the only commissioner that I don't remember if you all were there, but I think the majority of you were there at that meeting, was the deadline. And so in our past orders, for example, when we issued one for the August 3rd shooting, we put in the order a 30-day deadline. In other words, the order would only be good for 30 days. There is nothing in the law that prohibits the order to have a specific time frame. And so the issue that was raised at this time, and what I just wanted to reiterate, is that the order provides that it continues unless it is rescinded by the Commissioner's Court. And so the thought process in that was that so that the order would not be continually coming back to the court for approval as things move quickly, especially with this particular circumstance. And so that is why you're not seeing the order being brought back every 10 days, every 20 days, every 30 days. That doesn't mean that that deadline didn't have to be included, but the Commissioner's Court at that time voted to choose not to put that deadline, and it only would be ineffectuated, if you will, once it was rescinded by the court. Subsequent to that, though, the county judge does have the authority to issue his own orders, and you have seen that. He has done that. We are on our 7th order from the county judge, and so those continue to occur, and he does have the legal authority to do that and to continue on with those. So that's where you'll see that. So I wanted to clarify that. And then the only other thing I also wanted to bring to your attention, there were a couple of other things. Well, before I go on, did anybody have any questions on the order or the process that you wanted to raise at this time?
Thank you, Christina. Appreciate
Thank you.
that update.
And then yes, I had two other items I wanted to go over with you. One was the update that should have been included in Chris's response, but I just wanted to make sure to just give an update on the county attorney's activities. So the county attorney's office continues to provide our full range of services. Over 90% of the county attorney's workforce is fully functioning, working from home. Anybody that is requesting any services from our office should check our webpage at the County of El Paso website. We've listed all the telephone numbers for each of our individual units, and anybody can leave a message and we will answer those promptly. We have that going on a daily basis. There's always somebody to respond, and those are a day turnaround time. Anybody that is seeking protective orders from domestic violence or harassment we've also implemented an online application process so that people seeking protective orders do not need to come to the courthouse. They can do that online. Again, those instructions and that information to completing that protective order is on our webpage. And let's see what else. And the lawyers also continue to prepare and handle protective custody orders should they be required to detain non-compliant individuals with COVID-19 for the protection of those individuals as well as the community in general. So we continue to work on that angle with both the city attorney's office, law enforcement, and of course our civil unit is the one that is spearheading that. So that's our report from our office. I'll stop right here to see if there's any questions. Okay, and then just one other thing I wanted to go back to. Earlier, you had heard from Mr. Jose Landeros regarding the transportation, how we got the text down concurrence on that. It would be my recommendation for the court to make a motion to acknowledge that this is going to be used for the Opportunity Center. And the reason for that is we want to make sure that we do have on the record that the court has identified a public purpose in doing so. If you recall, we looked into this similar issue with regards to providing transportation during the crisis that we had from individuals coming into the community that needed transportation to the airports or to bus stations. That was in regards to the migrant issue. And so my recommendation would be for the court to take action. Yes, go ahead.
Before you give them a recommended motion, can we have them make it a little bit more broad? Because they also asked Public Works to help with the setup. So if we could make it the use of both the buses to transport individuals to another location within El Paso County, and the use of Public Works resources for the public purpose of avoiding overcrowding and responding to the COVID-19 crises.
And that's addressing, yes, absolutely. So this would be my recommended motion for that. So it'd be to authorize the use of county buses and First Transit buses to transport individuals from the Opportunity Center to another location within El Paso County. Furthermore, to allow the use of public work resources for that same purpose of providing assistance regarding the homeless population, again, for the public purpose of avoiding overcrowding at the homeless shelters in order to help stop the spread of COVID-19. And that would be the recommended motion.
So moved.
Judge, I have a quick question. Christina, this includes the Opportunity Center and...
I'm sorry, I didn't get that last part, Commissioner.
Yes, is this only limited to the Opportunity Center or other shelters?
This right now is only limited to the Opportunity Center. That's the only one I'm aware of, unless there's others, Betsy.
Can we make it more broad, and because this is generally the overall, because if there's situations in other shelters, we may be relocating them as well.
Okay, so then
I feel like we need to make it more broad. The Opportunity Center is kind of the focus right now, but it could be that other shelters may need the transportation as well.
Okay.
And I agree. And I
So
think
let's,
yesterday, one of the things we discussed was that it's not just the Opportunity Center, but you've got to, there's so many others that are providing help out there that we don't want to make it sound like it's just focused on them. I mean, the rescue mission, Salvation Army, they're all involved in similar activities. So that's a great recommendation to broaden that scope.
sure, we can do that. So amended motion would be to approve and authorize the use of county buses and First Transit buses to transport individuals and to also further allow the use of the Public Works Department staff personnel resources for the public purpose of avoiding overcrowding at any homeless shelter in order to help stop the spread of COVID-19.
Okay.
I second that.
Commissioner Perez?
Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Judge Samaniego?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Judge, there was one more, if I can, there's one more thing that I wanted to bring up that I forgot. So I've been contacted. I'm sure maybe some of you all have been contacted by some of the immigrant advocacy groups here in El Paso, and they're looking, they're asking for our support to, coordinate with and bring some of the federal authorities like ICE and CBP, Border Patrol, to the table as we're looking at our response to COVID-19. I think some of the issues that they have brought up are concerning. They haven't really received a lot of community engagement or coordination or transparency from CBP or ICE. Regarding the detention facilities that they have within El Paso County and what is going on. Are they following the orders that have been put in place? Is there distancing happening? I like them would definitely advocate for them to let these folks out, especially if they're not a threat to society, if they're in these centers. But I think that what maybe we could do is contact ICE and CBP leadership and maybe try to request the release of some of these folks in their facilities in the El Paso sector. Also ask for some type of detailed explanation as the steps that they are taking to protect our community, as well as the folks that they have in their centers, in their installations. I think that it's also concerning that there may not, I'm not sure if this is the case, but there may not be a plan that they have put in place. I'm still I've reached out to Jacobson Tony UMC, and maybe they have spoken to other hospitals as well, but trying to understand what their plan is if they end up having cases in their detention centers, and if they have an outbreak, what is their plan when it comes to utilizing our public hospital or any of the private hospitals, if they have any plan in place to make sure that these folks are taken care of in a hospital setting if needed. We could definitely, if we brought them to the table, we could, have our experts offer them advice on necessary steps to help make sure we preserve the health of the detainees, of course their staff, because a lot of the folks that work in these centers as well, They live in our community and they have family, and so we want them to be safe and their families to be safe, as well as the larger community as well. So I would hope that in future conversations that we may have, maybe we can bring in ICE and CDP to advocate for some of these things and really hammer with them the necessity, I think, for all of us to work together to make sure that the whole community, including those that may be in their facilities and those that are working in their facilities, are as safe as possible.
Thank you, Commissioner. Betsy?
Judge, I believe that's all we had under this item, unless there's anything else for Commissioners Court, and if there's anything you all would like us to do to follow up on Commissioner Stout's last item, we'd be glad to help coordinate that, unless that's something you want to lead or assign to, or ask Commissioner Stout to lead.
Yeah, I think we're all, I mean, I've been in touch with, I've met and had lunch sometime about a week ago with the ICE director and the bishop. We had a meeting to talk about some of these situations. They're very cooperative, willing to listen. He seems to be going in the right direction, and so I could follow up a little closer with him. And we had a meeting pending, and we postponed it, and I'll get back on top of that. And then I'll pull in Commissioner Stout as well to see what are some of the concerns and things that we could do. But let me take the lead at this time, and then I'll bring in.
That'd be great, Judge.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Stout.
Thank you very much. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Commissioners. That will conclude our report.
We'd like to go ahead and go to item 4N that was pulled from consent by Commissioner Perez. Item 4N, approve and authorize the purchasing agent to reject all responses and close bid 20-019 purchase of 4 new energy STAR certified single manufactured homes for the Colonia Self-Help Center program.
Commissioner Perez, you want to address that?
Yeah, thank you, Judge. I don't mean to spend a lot of time on this, Betsy. I'm sure you're on top of this and well aware. I mean, we've had previous issues before where there were certain timelines that weren't met. I just want to be sure that we're not, through this action, jeopardizing any potential funding that could come our way in the future from the state.
So, Commissioner, we still intend to proceed. I believe I have Irene on the line as well, but there was a problem with the proposal that was received. I can let Deborah explain the concern. It is my understanding, and Irene, please correct me if I'm wrong, we will rebid these.
But just to be clear, just timing-wise, we're okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Irene. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Good morning, County Judge Commissioners, Irene Valenzuela, Community Services. Yes, I believe Deborah will touch on the reasons why this bid was rejected, but we do intend to rebid this project.
Irene, is there any concern on our timeline with the grant?
We're in discussions with the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, the funding agency that provides the grant for this program. They've indicated to us that they will work with us on the deadlines and schedules. They do know that a lot of what we're trying to do, especially in the procurement aspect and the COVID-19 crisis, is preventing us from doing home assessments and inspections in people's homes. And so they know that we're not going to be able to do a lot of things. So they will work with us on the timeframes so that we may be able to complete these projects. without having to be penalized for missing any particular financial or programmatic thresholds.
And how long will it take to reprocure or send this out again?
Deborah Correjo-Troll, County Purchasing Agent. In this case, because it's a sealed bid, a straight solicitation, we can turn this around. I do not believe the specifications are going to change at all. Please understand the reason we had to reject was because the vendor, unfortunately, in an oversight, forgot to include their bid bond, and we could not consider it due to the price and the total amount that this would have resulted in a contract. That being the case, we plan on allowing Irene to just turn back around, resubmit it, and get it on the street as soon as possible. The only issue that we had with this was an oversight on the vendor's part. We anticipate a bid again, or at least more than one, maybe if we can dig up some more options. And pretty much this was just one of those things. There wasn't anything special that happened.
Okay. I mean, is there any reason why there's only one bid? Is there anything with the advertisement that just other vendors aren't? I mean, it's for manufactured homes. I mean, I don't. There's clearly just not.
I do think there's certain specifications because of the grant that the homes have to meet. It's not just any manufactured home. And Irene, do you want to expand on those?
Yes, they have to be energy certified homes, and they have to have a certain energy certification attached to those homes. I know from Deborah's team's effort, they submitted and they sent out several inquiries to several vendors throughout, not just locally, throughout the region and even so across the state. I believe only one submitted, which was the same vendor. Deborah, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's the same vendor that submitted the bid from last project. He's the only vendor that was able to meet the energy certification requirements that the program requires.
Okay. Thank you.
And Commissioner, we'll get you an updated timeline. When Irene, if we could put together the time that we expect to have it turned back around to purchasing, and then how long it's out and when we expect for it to be through the purchasing process.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'll move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Perez?
Aye.
Commissioner Leon?
Aye.
Commissioner Stout?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Commissioner Robinson.
Commissioner Robinson?
Still on the line.
Is
Commissioner
he mute by
Robinson?
chance?
He is not muted.
Jessica, I don't know if you could, that he stepped out and then we'll just vote, or do you need to have him present?
No. Okay. Judge Samaniego?
Aye.
Okay, and motion carries. Item number 7, purchasing. Award bid 20014 as needed paving emulsion material for the County of El Paso to Holly Frontier Refining and Marketing LLC, Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Unknown
in the amount
participant
of
is now exiting.
$1,122,000. Purchasing approved on March 27, 2020. Funding is available in SR Road and Bridge Road Resurfacing.
Deborah Correjo-Troll, County Purchasing Agent. In this case, we are requesting award to the lowest bidder, responsive and responsible. This was a straight sealed bid. This is part of the normal road paving program. I believe there was discussion on that earlier. If you award, this will be processed as normal. It's part of our routine business.
I've got a question on that, Judge, real quick.
Judge, yeah, Commissioner Leon?
Deborah, just a quick question. With all the companies that we have in town, it surprises me that it was awarded to an out-of-town firm, and it's okay. I'm sure it was the lowest bidder. But is there, do they have an office here, a plant here? It's just very surprising because that's, to me, that's heavy material. And I'm just surprised that the local vendors either didn't respond or they were too high.
Actually, Commissioner Leon, I don't know if you remember, but around July of 2019, you asked me the same question, and we did some research on that, including basically querying every vendor in our database that was a local vendor. We wanted to find out if there were any local vendors that supplied this emulsion product. And if they did, why couldn't they bid or why wouldn't they bid? Out of every vendor, and you have a copy of this, and I think there's also a copy of the results of our query attached to your backup documentation. Out of all the vendors queried, and we went back 3 times just to make sure that vendors were getting our requests, and we even made some phone calls. Only 2 vendors responded. And at this time, we do not believe there's any vendors in El Paso that actually supply emulsion. The 2 vendors that bid this time, and this was a better situation because if you remember last year, we only got 1 bidder, and that was what promulgated your question. The 2 bidders that bid on this were both out of state and out of El Paso. So at least we did get competition this time. But at this time, we can't find any vendor that says they supply the emulsion. Now, the other road materials that we get, yes, local vendors galore. But in this case, we're just dealing with a commodity that is not produced or supplied here in El Paso. And I do not believe this vendor has an office here in El Paso, but we can double check that and get back to you.
No, it's okay. Now I remember a few months back asking the same question, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Commissioner Leon,
Aye.
Commissioner Stout,
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson, Commissioner Robinson is absent. Judge Samaniego.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 8, award bid 20-017 Far East Water Tank Pump Replacement Project to Champion Tank Services of Elko, New Market, Minnesota in the amount of $434,000. Purchasing approved on April 1st, 2020. Funding is available in SR Road and Bridge Operations Equipment.
Deborah Correjo, Control County Purchasing Agent. On this item, I would like to correct one typo on the communication. There were 2 respondents, not 4. The bid tab shows both Champion Tank and Smithco Construction. In this case, we would like to award to Champion Tank Services. I believe there are Public Works Road and Bridge personnel on the line if you have specific questions about this project, but it was a sealed bid and the lowest responsive and responsible, and there was due diligence on this on behalf of the department.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Commissioner Leon,
Aye.
Commissioner Stout,
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson, Commissioner Robinson is absent. Judge Samaniego.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 9, award bid 20-018 up to 20,000 tons of paving rock grade F and up to 12,000 tons of paving rock grade C for the County of El Paso to Mini Concrete Materials of El Paso, Texas, in the amount of $578,000. Purchasing approved on March 27, 2020. Funding is available in SR Road and Bridge Road Resurfacing.
Deborah Correjo, Troll County Purchasing Agent. Again, this is routine award of road paving materials. Both the vendors were local El Paso vendors. We're requesting award to Mini Concrete Materials of El Paso.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Commissioner Leon,
Aye.
Commissioner Stout,
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson. Commissioner Robinson is absent. Judge Samaniego.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 10, Economic Development. Receive a presentation and provide direction to staff regarding a proposal to create a Federal National Register Historic District nomination for Segundo Barrio. If approved, funding in an amount not to exceed $49,824 is available in SR Tourist Promotion Operations Expenses General. Also, just for information, we do have two guests signed up to speak for public comment regarding this item.
Judge, this is Miguel Mendez, audiovisual technician. I do have to get Valerie Venecia on the line, but would you like me to bring the public comment persons first?
Commissioners, your thought on that?
Good morning, Miguel. Good morning, Commissioners. Valerie Venecia, Heritage Tourism Coordinator. It's perfectly fine with me if you'd like to proceed with public comment first.
Yeah, what I would like is just to hear your introduction and, go into the topic, and then that way they can hear what you've said. Maybe you'll cover some of the information that they need, and then we'll go into public comment.
Sounds good. We'll go ahead and begin with the presentation first then. Thank you, Judge. So today we're here to present to you a proposal that was prepared by Hardy Heck and Moore, who were contracted by the county to complete the Downtown Historical and Architectural Survey, which is currently in process. And at this time, I understand that it's kind of a strange time to bring this item forward, but there were some recommendations that we received from the Texas Historical Commission, which was to nominate Segundo Barrio separately, which is why we're going to go ahead and bring this forward now. If we could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So as you know, the survey originally included this very large boundary, including the Rio Grande Historic District north of I-10, and then south of I-10, the entire Downtown Historic District. Next slide, please. And so when we presented the proposed boundaries that Hardy Heck and Moore and county staff came up with for state review, it came back that we were recommended to nominate Segundo Barrio Historic District separately. If we can go ahead and move to the next slide, please. And so at this time, the question is, would the court like to pursue a National Register Historic District nomination for Segundo Barrio? And if the answer is yes, if we could go ahead and move to the next slide. If the answer is yes, then there are some additional steps that will need to take place in considering this as a new separate project from the downtown survey. So the first step would be boundary negotiation. If we could move to the next slide, please. So we would need to negotiate out the boundaries through the determination of eligibility process. You see before you in orange outlined is the area recommended by the State Historic Preservation Office. And in blue is a larger area that's being recommended by Hardy Heck and Moore. we have the opportunity to submit up to 3 determinations of eligibility boundaries if it is the will of the court. And so at this time, we do have room to submit 1 additional boundary proposals if the court so desires, in addition to the 2 that you see before you. Next slide, please. Once the determination of eligibility process has been completed and the state has given their recommendation as to which of the 3 proposed boundary areas we should move forward, then the county staff will work with the county attorneys and the purchasing department to either amend the current contract or come up with a new contract. It is important to note that there's a large cost savings, being that the survey portion of this study has already been completed as part of the downtown survey study area. In that first map that you saw, you noticed that Segundo Barrio was included in the study area, so that portion has already been completed. That also means that we're saving on a lot of time because all of the field work involved with completing a survey is also complete. And then, of course, continuation of services. Hardy Heck and Moore has been a part of this study from the beginning, and so we have their expertise and knowledge going forward. So depending on which survey area is approved from the determination of eligibility, we're looking at a cost of about $44,000 through $49,000, again, depending on which survey boundary is approved. If we could move to the next slide, please. So at this time, staff is recommending that the Commissioners Court approve Hardy Heck and Moore's proposal and that they allow us to move forward with the determination of eligibility process. Once the determination of eligibility process has been completed, and it will take a couple of months, then we will bring back the approved boundaries and the contract for the Commissioners Court to approve. If we could move to the next slide, please. And I just wanted to also point out the cost for the downtown survey in its entirety was $139,000. And so for a separate nomination, we would be looking at just $44,000 to $49,000 in additional costs. Next slide, please. And we have verified with the budget department that funds are available. And so tentatively allowing enough time for the determination of eligibility process to be complete, followed by a contract amendment or a new contract through our purchasing department and through the county attorneys with an anticipated start date of July 1st, which means that if the court approves us moving forward, and once the contract has been amended, we would begin approximately around July, and this is what the timeline would look like. We would have a first draft back to the court for review in September, and once the court would provide review and feedback on that first draft, then we would proceed with the state review, followed by preparation for state board of review. So you see that it's a completely different timeline than that of the downtown survey, considering the Segundo Barrio nomination completely separate project. And then the last slide, please. At this time, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them as best as I can.
Thank you, Valerie. Appreciate that. Can we now have the public comments, please?
Calling the first person.
Hello.
Hello, you are live with the
participant
Commissioners Court.
is now
If you could
joining.
state your name and address the court, please.
Yeah, my name is Max Grossman.
Go ahead.
Am I before the Commissioners
You
Court?
are addressing the commissioners right now.
Okay, great to be before you virtually, gentlemen. I want to begin by just commending you on your handling of this crisis. You guys are amazing, especially you're taking steps to handle the financial issues. But to the point here, you've heard already how important Segundo Barrio is, and that it has historical boundaries that go back to 1873 when El Paso was established. And it's really important that the district that's created fit within the historical boundaries to the extent possible and capture as much building stock within that area. So you have three options before you. And as we discussed the last time I was before you, I'm advocating for the full-size version, the large Segundo Barrio district, the plan that I presented to you. I want to remind you that I spoke to Greg Smith at the THC. He's the man who actually reviews this. And he made it very clear that this is workable, that he's on board, and that he thinks that this is an appropriate plan. And had he known about the district in terms of its historical importance and its boundaries, their initial recommendations would have been different. I understand that hot tax has been earmarked for this project. That is exactly what hot tax is for. Nothing will generate tourism like historic preservation, and especially recognizing and commemorating a neighborhood of this importance. As we heard from Valerie Venezia, there are cost savings or efficiencies built into this particular plan. It is important to move forward before the survey expires and to complete everything expeditiously. I want to also tell you, I'm speaking on behalf of Bobby Welch, the chair of the CHC. She could not be here today. And we talked at length. Every word of what I'm telling you has been approved by her as well. And she's consulted with members of her board. So in any case, I commend you also on this process. This is so important to so many people. And everybody is counting on you today to move forward with the establishment of a standalone Segundo Barrio historic district. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Grossman. Dr. Grossman, thank you.
Calling this
Thank
the
you
next
all.
person.
So in any case, I commend you also on this process.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Miguel, did we lose that last
We
person
lost.
for public
That was
comment?
Max exiting, Mr. Grossman exiting. Now I'm calling the next person.
Hi, you've
Okay,
reached
thank
Cito
you.
Negron. Please leave a
Unknown
message. I'll get back to
participant
you
is
as soon as
now
I can.
joining.
That's the next
At the
person.
tone,
Was
please
Mr.
record
Let
your
me try one more
message.
time.
When you have finished recording,
Like me to try one more time.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Okay,
I am placing the call.
Hi, you've reached Cito Negron.
It just goes.
Unknown
message. I'll get back
participant
to you
is
as
now
soon as I can.
joining.
at the tone,
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Yes, it just keeps going to the voicemail, Judge.
Okay. We'll have to move unless we could continue a little bit. I know, Valerie, if there's anything else, maybe we could see if he comes back on the line. Valerie, any further comments, commissioners?
Judge,
If there's any questions.
I don't.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Judge. I don't have really any questions. Just just comment, I guess. I feel like this is something that we've been working on for quite a while, and we are, we're poised to create a historic district in probably the most historic district in the most historic part of El Paso. I think that if kind of going off of what Valerie talked about, it's really important for us to move forward at this point and not have the current survey, which we've already spent $140,000 on, I believe, or spending $140,000 on expire, because if we did that, if we did not move forward and let that expire, and we wanted to do this in the future, we would have to basically do the survey over and spend that money again. I think saving hot funds now to spend more hot funds later for the same project really isn't fiscally responsible, and I think that ideally we could definitely quantify the savings from the survey and field work being done here. So I think this is an important step forward. I hope that everybody agrees with this. Hot funds are restricted funds, and so of course it's not something that we can utilize for much else. And these are the exact type of programs and projects that these funds I feel like are meant for. And so I think that we should definitely move forward. So I don't know if we have the other. I don't know if Mr. Negron was able to be contacted, but I would imagine that he was probably calling to possibly read Senator Rodriguez's letter of support that he sent to us. I know that I think they sent it to all of us, but my staff also sent the letter to you all, commissioners and judge as well. But I don't know if any other comments or any other questions, but I'd like to go ahead and move to approve this item so we can move forward and get this designation rolling.
Judge and commissioners, this is Miguel Mendez, Audiovisual
Commissioner.
Technician.
Hi, this is Christina Sanchez. Just wanted to let you know this item is not posted for action. It's only posted to receive a presentation. However, with that said,
Okay.
You can give direction to your staff. And then what ends up happening if the court wants to go forward on this, we will bring back that contract, and that would be the action to take going forward. But you certainly can give them their direction. I just wanted to advise that.
Okay. Yeah,
We need direction
I
and
see that
whether or not
presentation. So
whether or not you want a third model.
Okay.
This is Miguel Mendez.
Right.
I was able to get a
At
hold
this
of
time,
Cito Negron.
Right, if I could clarify, at this time, we're just looking for staff directive to move forward with the determination of eligibility process. That way we know which boundary we're going to be using going forward, and we know exactly what the cost will be. Please be advised that every step of the way we'll continue to bring the item back for court approval, including, most importantly, the contract once the DOE process is complete.
And Valerie, does this include would this include looking at the model that we discussed with our local historical commission?
Absolutely. So in the presentation, you saw two boundaries that were proposed by the state, one by Hardy, Heck, and Moore, and then the third we left blank in anticipation that we would submit a third set of boundaries from the community, namely Mr. Grossman.
Okay. Okay, great. So then, if that's the case, then I hope that we can provide direction to the staff to move forward with those three options.
Miguel, I think we're back on the call.
Let me reach out to him via Teams.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, placing the call.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Cito Negron.
Unknown participant is now
Yes,
joining.
sir.
Okay, you are with the commissioners. You may state your name and please address the court.
My name is Cito Negron. I'm the district director for State Senator Rodriguez, and thank you all very much for the efforts you made to allow public comment. I know it was difficult to get through, and I wanted to read the letter from Senator Rodriguez, which hopefully you all have in front of you, and also just to point out the significance of a neighborhood-oriented historic district. We've focused a lot on downtown development, which is very important for economically, but the neighborhood really would give life to the central core. So from the senator, dear judge and dear county judge and commissioners, thank you for your commitment to the progress of our community and your strong support for preserving and enhancing our historic assets as a way to build quality of life, education, and economic development. This is reflected in previous actions such as the survey of downtown El Paso and today on agenda item 10, which proposes to take another step forward on behalf of one of the community's most important areas, Segundo Barrio. This community of neighborhoods adjacent to downtown is seminal to the story of El Paso. As important as downtown is, so too are the neighborhoods that surround it. Segundo Barrio, the Ellis Island of the southwest of the border, is essential to the immigrant story of not only El Paso, but of the entire United States. In 2016, a National Trust for Historic Preservation named Segundo Barrio as one of its 11 most endangered historic places. These neighborhoods, shaped by a long line of people, from legendary healers to Mexican revolutionary Pancho Villa and migrant farm workers to muralists, are where the urbanization of El Paso began, the Trust wrote. Through El Segundo Barrio's historic role as the Ellis Island of the border, these El Paso neighborhoods embody the unique transnational character of the city and bring focus to an often overlooked side of the American experience. Affording Segundo Barrio the historic designation it deserves would support this rich history, as well as helping leverage funds to build upon it. Additionally, as noted before, this would build upon the county's previous investment. It is a prudent use of hot funds that would support heritage tourism development, and as such is a relatively small investment in El Paso's future. For these reasons, I am in full support of item 10 and respectfully urge its passage. Sincerely, Jose Rodriguez. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak on the senator's behalf.
Thank you, Mr. Negron.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Judge, this is Miguel. We did receive another request for public comment.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Go ahead. Placing call.
Hello?
Hello, sir. You are
Unknown
with the county
participant
commissioners.
is now
If you could please
joining.
state your name and address the court.
Hello?
Can you state your name and address
Hello?
the court, sir?
Yes, this is Mark Calamia.
Go ahead. You can address the court.
Hello?
Yes, sir. You can
this is
address
Mark-
the court.
Mark
Mr.
Calamia.
Calamia,
Is this
can you
concerning
hear
Agenda
us?
10?
Go ahead, sir.
Hello?
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, this is concerning Agenda 10, is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Yes, this is Dr. Mark Calamia. I'm a Cultural Resource Program Manager at Chamizal National Memorial with the National Park Service. I'm also a member of the County Historical Commission, and I'm a native and citizen of El Paso. My parents, my father, his father, and my great-grandfather grew up in Segundo Barrio, or came to Segundo Barrio and grew up there. I have spoken before this court, and I want to reiterate my interest and concern about the National Historic District boundary that was proposed by the THC earlier. That was, in my opinion, and those of others I know, including other citizens of El Paso, inadequate, because it divides a very important historic district and one that's potentially a national historic district into different areas, and it has implications both sociologically and economically and culturally that will affect the people and the historic preservation efforts of Segundo Barrio forever if that particular scheme is allowed to stand. What I mentioned last time I was there before the court, and I want to reiterate in this message, is the need to go forward with the proposal as developed by Dr. Max Grossman to create a more unified district using those proposed boundaries that were outlined in the presentation he gave about 2.5 weeks ago or so. So that to maintain the cultural fabric, and also, and as I mentioned last time, the importance of considering Segundo Barrio as a whole neighborhood, part of a greater cultural landscape that needs to be included in this proposed national register nomination as a district. So if we are forgetting about the cultural landscape approach to this, then it really will cause the new, whatever comes out of this, to be less than what it should be. The cultural fabric needs to be maintained and to comply with not only federal, but state and local standards for historic districts. We really need to consider this now, start viewing it as a greater landscape, a cultural landscape, integrated parts both culturally and physically with each other and socially. And in my opinion, there is a quality of life and a human rights issue here. The people should not be denied their opportunity to have themselves part of a unified, holistic district. If you start bifurcating it or breaking it up into other smaller pieces, it and the people will suffer, not just in terms of preservation, but socially and economically.
Mr.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Colonia. Thank you, Dr.
Hello.
Colonia. Appreciate your comments. Dr. Colonia,
okay.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Judge Samaniego. I appreciate you and the court considering my comments.
Thank you so much.
Is now
Valerie?
exiting.
Your request once again, see if it's a favor of the court to.
We're asking for court direction on the 3 options to be submitted and the authority or the direction to proceed with bringing back a contract.
Would the court like to proceed with the nomination for Segundo Barrio? And is it okay for staff to move forward with the determination of eligibility process at this time?
It is for me.
I agree.
I'm in agreement.
And Judge, if I could just make a quick comment.
Sure, Commissioner Perez.
While recognizing like how much funding has already been allocated to this effort, the level of uncertainty that exists right now in the local economy is just something that we've never seen before. Just within the last 7 days, Texas lost 275,000 jobs in a span of 2 weeks. At the peak of the Great Recession, the highest number that we saw in the 4 years of the recession was 49,000 in a week's period. We're looking at the possibility of losing 20 million jobs by the end of April. During the Great Recession, we lost 8.7 million jobs. The magnitude of the uncertainty that we're facing is something that we have never seen before, and something that currently rivals the 1982 stock market crash and recession. The things I think we should be asking the governor at this point, while I recognize that they're hot funds, is, can in this time of emergency, can the governor ease the restrictions on hot funds to help us address the immediate emergency that's before us? I think those measures need to be looked at, because at what point are we going to start really deciding what's essential and what's non-essential in a crisis that we're facing? That's my viewpoint. I respect those who have a difference of opinion, but I just, for just so the public is clear on my position, the job losses that we have seen within the last couple of weeks is something that we've never seen before, and I think that again, we're as a border community, we're fortunate to benefit from hot funds, but I think in these extraordinary times, we should be asking Governor Abbott to see if he can waive the requirements for that and explore those legal options, to address the issue that we're going to be that we're in the middle of right now, and that's going to escalate in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pettis.
If I may, just if it helps with that, making everybody more comfortable with this proposal, with the finalizing of the survey, property owners in Segundo Barrio will be eligible to use state and federal historic tax credits towards renovation and restoration of their properties. Segundo Barrio has been looked at as an opportunity zone, and so if a property owner decides to engage in restoration or rehab, there's a possibility of combining different types of tax credits. And those types of construction projects do generate jobs and stimulate the economy. And we do have funds available from the hotel occupancy tax at this time. And not to mention the cost savings versus starting from scratch, since a good chunk of the work has already been done through the survey boundary in the original downtown study project.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you, Valerie. Those are all great points.
Do you have a consensus at this time?
I believe so.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'll go ahead and work with Hardy Heck and Moore to request the determination of eligibilities through the state, and then we'll bring that back to you for approval as soon as that process is complete. I appreciate your time. And thank you for all that you're doing for the community.
Thank you, Valerie. Appreciate your comments.
And this completes all the items on today's agenda, Judge.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
This completes today's meeting at 12:08 p.m.
Thank you all.
So meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.